It's sort of funny how the older we get, the more we start to realize that the things we thought mattered most actually matter the least. Now, it took me until my 30s to finally see it. And now that I have, well, quite frankly, I can't unsee it. I'm sure it hits all of us in different ways and at different times. But for me, it started with a quiet noticing. Every day began to feel the same. Maybe you felt that too. You stop noticing the details. You forget what it feels like to move without urgency. You start living for what's next instead of what's now. 4 years, I didn't realize how much of my life was built on forward motion. I was always chasing the next thing. College, a job with benefits, a house with a mortgage. I followed the script that so many of us are handed. Work hard now so you can enjoy your life later. And in the meantime, keep climbing, keep achieving, keep checking those boxes. And to be honest, I was so good at it. The goals were clear, the steps were obvious, and on paper, I was doing everything right. But no matter how many milestones I hit, the satisfaction never seemed to last. I kept expecting to feel that moment of finally arriving. Some internal signal that said, yes, this is it, you've made it. I think I was looking for a sense of ease or pride or peace, some kind of exhale that would make all the effort feel worth it. But if I'm being honest, that moment, it never came. And over time, something inside of me shifted. I stopped feeling energized. I stopped feeling excited. Honestly, I stopped feeling much of anything at all. And the problem wasn't just that I was tired. It was much deeper than that. The real problem was that I couldn't remember the last time that I felt joy. Maybe you know what that's like. Maybe you're in the thick of motherhood or you're holding down a job you've outgrown. Maybe you're managing a dozen roles at once, wondering when it all starts to feel like yours again. That's where I was 6 years ago, standing at the edge of a life that was fine, but quietly wondering if it could be something more. You see, at the time, I was working full-time on my neighbor's dairy farm. And it was good, honest work. Physically demanding, yes, but deeply rooted in something real. And for a long time, I genuinely loved it. But dairy farming doesn't stop for holidays or for weekends or for snowstorms. We work 365 days a year, no matter what. And while that kind of rhythm made sense when I was younger, when the pace matched my energy, over time I started to feel the toil. Not just physically, but emotionally too. There was no room to pause, no space for reflection or rest or creativity. And the longer I stayed in that cycle, the more I realized that I wasn't actually living, I was just keeping up. I didn't have time to ask myself if this life still fit. And eventually, that became my answer. I didn't want to keep moving through my days on autopilot. I didn't want to live a life that looked good on the outside, but felt like survival on the inside. What I wanted was a life that felt like mine, a life where I could create, contribute, and move at a rhythm that made sense for who I was becoming. So I made a change. I left behind the security of a job that I knew, steady hours, reliable income, predictable routines, and I stepped into something I had only ever known as a side interest. I started a flower farm. And it was one of the most unexpected decisions that I've ever made. On paper, it didn't make a lick of sense. I wasn't a trained florist. I hadn't even grown much beyond a hanging basket on my front porch. But something in me was ready. Because what I didn't know at the time was that this decision wouldn't just change what I did for work. It would change how I moved through the world. It would reshape how I experienced time and purpose and creativity. It would change me. leaving the dairy farm wasn't just about changing careers. It was about reclaiming the kind of life that I wanted to live. And while I didn't know it then, stepping away from the path I'd always known, it would teach me more than I ever expected. Not just about work, but about time, about trust, and about what really matters. So in case you're standing at a similar crossroads, questioning if it's worth it, wondering if you're allowed to want something different, here are a few things I've learned since choosing a slower, more intentional life. Number 1, slowing down isn't falling behind. I didn't leave my job because I wanted a vacation. I left because I wanted my life back. I was tired of rushing, tired of chasing goals that never seemed to bring peace. I was tired of measuring my worth by my productivity. What I really longed for was margin, not just in my schedule, but in my soul. And flower farming, it gave that to me in its own quiet way. It taught me to notice again, to live with the season instead of pushing against it, to believe that slow, steady, meaningful work is still enough. Yes, the shift, it came with uncertainty. Yes, it was uncomfortable at times, but it also gave me something I hadn't felt in years: presence. And maybe most surprisingly, I realized this: slowness isn't the opposite of success. Slowness is what gives success its substance. Number 2, time freedom is the real currency. In the early days of building my business, I worried a lot about money. Would this work? Would it be worth the risk? Would I have to go back? But slowly I began to see what I was really earning: my time. I wasn't stuck behind a schedule that didn't fit my life anymore. I could design my days in a way that supported both my business and my well-being. That's actually why we decided to be a 4-season farm here at Two Sisters. People sometimes assume that we chose that path so that we could always be growing or always be selling. But the truth is, being a 4-season farm wasn't about doing more. It was about designing a business that let us scale up or down depending on what life looked like in any given season. It gave us flexibility, it gave us a rhythm, and it gave us freedom. Now, some seasons are full, others are restful, but they're all part of a life that we're building on purpose. Because what I gained wasn't just a new job, it was a freedom to say yes to what matters and no to what doesn't. And that kind of freedom, well, that's the real wealth. Now, number 3, you have to learn to let go. This work that we're doing, it's tied to the rhythms of nature, and nature doesn't always cooperate. There are late frosts, failed crops, weeds that take over faster than you can hoe. There are seasons when the numbers are tight, the weather's unpredictable, and the best laid plans still fall short. In the beginning, I tried to control for everything. If I just worked harder, planned more, stayed ahead of every possibility, then maybe I could force the outcome that I wanted. But that's not how this works, and honestly, well, that's not how life works either. I've had to learn how to let go, how to focus on the parts that I can control, and trust that the rest will work itself out. Prep the beds, plant the seeds, do the best that I can with what is right in front of me, and then let go. Because the weather will do what it will, and so will life. Some things bloom, others don't, but that doesn't mean the effort wasn't worth it. Number 4, you don't need to know it all to begin. When I first got started, I barely knew how to keep a hanging basket alive. So you can imagine how scary it was to stake everything on a flower farm. I had no formal training, no roadmap, just a hunch and a lot of heart. There were so many moments when I thought, what if this doesn't work? But eventually that question shifted. It became, even if this doesn't go as planned, I trust myself to figure it out. And that one shift from fear to trust, it made all the difference. Because the most valuable thing that I built over the years, it's not just a flower farm, it's a deeper, steadier belief in myself. And that leads me right into number 5. The real gift was who I became. Yes, I built something I'm proud of. Yes, we sell flowers, we host events, we run a real business. But the thing I cherish most, it's who I've become in the process. I no longer move through my life in autopilot. I feel connected, I feel present, I let joy in, not just on holidays or birthdays, but on quiet, ordinary mornings. I've learned that life isn't one big highlight reel, it's a collection of small, meaningful moments. And when you create space to actually experience them, well, everything changes. You begin to live again. The life you want, it might not be that far away. Now, maybe your story won't look like mine. Maybe you'll never farm or work with flowers or start your own business. And that's okay. The bigger message here isn't about what you do, it's about why you do it. It's about listening to the part of you that's quietly wondering if life could feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more connected, a little bit more yours. You know, it's about recognizing when something isn't working and giving yourself permission to build something new. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: you're not behind, you're simply waking up. So keep going. Because what you're building, slowly, imperfectly, intentionally, it's going to mean more than you may ever know. Growing flowers was one of the biggest things that helped me to slow down and reconnect with what matters most. But you don't need to become a full-fledged flower farmer to experience that same kind of joy. If you've been craving more beauty, more intention, or just a reason to step outside and breathe deeper, well, why not try planting a few blooms of your own? If you'd love help to get you started, check out this video here that I'm going to link in the end card, and I walk you through how to plan your very first cutting garden step by step. I hope to see you there. Bye now.